Hello everyone! My name is Paulina Molinari and I am a demand generation executive at VILT. Today, we're going to have our first edition of VILT's State of Affairs. Our special guest is going to be Virgilio Alex Gaspar, who is VILT's Group Global Sales Director and Master's Professor at the University of Barcelona for Document Management and Enterprise Information Management. Welcome, Alex. Thank you for joining me today. It's great to have you on the first edition of the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Paulina. It's a pleasure for me to join you today for this chat.
I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit about your insights and what you have to explain. So let's jump right into the questions.
Let's do it.
What do you think are the main benefits for an organization to have a clearly defined enterprise information management strategy during times of crisis and uncertainty?
Yeah, so I think nowadays we're actually going through a very special and I would say unfortunate situation, but it's serving at least a purpose to show that a couple of factors might be very relevant when we go through something like this. I think one of them is to actually be in a situation to keep operating, to keep doing our daily work, while changing the way we do it. And this means, for instance, we were used to go to the office and to be able to go to a customer and sit with the customer. And today we need to keep doing that, but doing it differently. So the ability to work from anywhere and the ability to not have a dependency on the physical location where we're working at, that's clearly been exposed. And I think all companies which were already in a situation to allow their workforce to work from anywhere are obviously better prepared to handle this situation. I think the second thing that I would highlight is probably the ability to adapt, because on one hand there's the possibility of working from anywhere by doing the same things we were doing before, but for some businesses that's not simply enough because the whole situation has changed. So now the challenge is also how can I keep doing business but change whatever is necessary and adapt to these circumstances. And as an example, if I am selling to restaurants and all the supply chain is designed to serve the purpose of delivering my goods to restaurants, as soon as we go into lockdown, that won't work anymore because the restaurants are not working. So I need to try to change how can I sell my products, my goods to the end customer, to the end client in this case. How can I go online and sell online? How can I change the way I'm delivering my goods? So all this requires an ability to adapt. So I would say a combination of being able to work from anywhere, together with the ability to adapt. Those two things are probably today the main differentiators for organizations who are able to cope with this crisis, and with organizations who unfortunately are not coping so well with the situation that we are living in.
All right, very interesting. So, how can organizations deliver better outcomes and value to their customers and stakeholders in times of crisis while having to deal with the constant uncertainty and having the majority of their team working remotely?
Yeah, I think it's a huge challenge. So I think we need to first acknowledge that we are living a huge challenge, even at a personal level, because we are changing the way we live, and that's happening. That happened very quickly, so it's a huge challenge. And I think before everything else, I think each the priority within the organizations needs to be the persons, people. And if we think of people first, if we put people in the first as a priority, then everything else will be easier. And by saying this, what I mean is, if we're able to provide our people on one hand, the possibility of keep working in a safe location without being exposed or so exposed to the threat. On the other hand, to allow our people to keep doing their work in a work from anywhere way, that will probably create better conditions for them to do their work happy, safe, and delivering value, delivering more happiness to the end customer, and hence making the business flow. So people must come first in the situation we're living. I also think that obviously the immediate effects of this are not good, but I think in terms of transformation, it's not necessarily all of this is a bad thing. So just to have a couple of examples, we are now spending less time commuting. We are probably having the chance to spend more time with our families and children. So not all of this is necessarily bad. It's obviously transformation. Everyone was taken from their comfort zone, so we need to experience and adapt. I think one of the good things about this, and going a little bit back to business into how companies can leverage the situation the best possible, I think each company, each organization needs to go back and focus on what's really essential, what's the value that they're bringing to their customers and to the community, and by refocusing on that, all the weaknesses are exposed right now. So each company can now clearly identify what I need to change to keep operating. And that somehow created a momentum, that created a force, which is driving organizations into a transformation, a digital transformation need, which was somehow up until now, it was something that was on the radar. Some organizations had embraced it, some others did not. But right now, it's no longer something that I should do. It's something that I need to do to survive. So when surviving is the word, then the companies obviously will need to find ways to adapt. Again, focusing on the core value of the organizations and understanding what needs to be done in terms of the way they do their work is probably the key thing that organizations need to come up with to improve. And obviously, by doing so, creativity, being innovative, is key. People need to think outside of the box, because the box changed a lot. So I think those are somehow forces that may drive organizations into being more resilient. And I think in the end, that's the key word. Resilient organizations are now coping better with the situation, and organizations which are not as resilient as they could be are now in a situation where they need to evolve into that stage. So and obviously that's where I think also information management comes in, and I think it's a big part of the solution.
Thank you. So Alex, for your customers, have you defined supply chain and production risks that the crisis could potentially pose? And what do you think they could do to mitigate those risks?
Yeah, so I think obviously that there are certain aspects of the supply chain which cannot be mitigated, because simply if a given good stops being produced in the source, then there's simply no way to keep my production flowing unless I find another source for that good. And that takes me to where I think is the key. I think today, connected enterprises, organizations who are able to be more open to move to the cloud, and who are already leveraging having the supply chain managed on cloud solutions, probably are now in a better position to change and to find other sources for their supply chain, or to find different channels to deliver their goods without having to significantly have an impact on their business. So I think moving to the cloud and leveraging the ability to have my supply chain connected to and by being connected, exposed, and in a situation where I can very quickly change the source or change the channels that I'm using to distribute, then probably those companies are in a better position. So again, our suggestion is the move to the cloud and the move to leverage this kind of managed services probably is a very good way to be more resilient and to also be more adaptable, which goes back to the initial topics that I was bringing. Again, innovation is part of the game, and that is something that will probably create the differentiation between companies who are able to stay out, come out stronger from the situation, and unfortunately others will probably not be coming out of the situation at all. But unfortunately, that's part of the process that we're living.
All right. So after that, I wanted to know what are some of the first steps organizations who had not prioritized digital transformation pre-COVID-19 need to make sure they can remain not only functional but innovative during and past the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and actually, I think it's a tremendous opportunity for organizations to avoid what I believe was one of the biggest, let's say, mistakes done in the recent years by some changing processes. So, a lot of organizations spend their budgets on transforming their paper-based processes into digitized paper-based processes, and this might have improved very in a very small scale, might have improved something, but it did not actually touch the core, which is how do I transform my business? How do I go digital? But by actually performing digital transformation, by looking at the way I'm managing the whole supply chain, the way I'm operating, by looking at the processes and by transforming them, transforming the way I interact with my sources, transforming the way I interact with my customers and with my employees, to actually transform that. And I think it's a very good chance today for the companies who are now in a situation where I need to do something, probably to look at first what's key to keep operating, and all companies had to find an answer to this question today, and then focus on improving those processes, on making them more resilient, making them ideally not dependent on paper at all, because we can, if everything is there online, if everything is already in a situation where I don't need to sign a paper, I don't need to wait for someone to do that, then we're operating in a flow. And I think the key again is, let's focus on digital transformation. Let's start by the key processes, the key activities that allow me to keep operating and that allow me to keep my business moving. And let's identify the weaknesses that were exposed by the situation we're living and try to address those immediately. Very simple things like the ability to digitally sign a document or to share a document with another department for them to review and send it back to me without being printing and manually reviewing. Those are very simple things, but those are probably some of the things that came up as stoppers when we moved home to keep working. So I think focusing on the key processes, focusing on actual digital transformation and not only going digital, and focusing on what are the weaknesses of our company as a dynamic being. I think those are probably the key strategies to address this.
Very interesting, Alex. So, in a nutshell, can you tell us what enterprise information management is?
That's a very interesting question. I mean, we should The way I see it, if we look at the businesses and organizations today, we all depend on information to operate. So enterprise information management actually covers, on one hand, the set of stages the information relies on, like capturing, creating, managing, collaborating on the information, making it available for the different parties. So all these different stages of the information life cycle. So that's one end. But on the other hand, and I think that's where we need to be today, we need to go on top of this and actually leverage all this information by introducing things like artificial intelligence and machine learning to actually help us to make more informed decisions and to understand how can I serve my customers better, how can I operate better by applying all this intelligence to the information. So enterprise information management covers not only the management and the custody of all the information, but actually the process of extracting value from it. Okay, so it's not a very short answer, but the fact is that enterprise information management actually covers a lot. But the good thing is that if you're actually able to grasp it and to get in control of the information you're managing, you'll probably be in a process to transform your organization, improve it, and moving from just being a business into being a leader in what you do. And I think enterprise information management is one of the ingredients to allow organizations to move from just being businesses into becoming leaders in the business they're working on. Also, and I think this is very important, and it's been very visible in the situation we're living. When I talk about organizations, I'm obviously also talking about the government and the citizens. And if we just transpose all this into the relationship that we have with our government, with the institutions, we can be in a better position, and we can be better served, and everything can work smoother if also from the public entities we move into this information management situation where clearly everyone will benefit from, including us as citizens going through this situation.
That's great, Alex. That's great. So, besides being the global sales director at VILT Group and also being a lecturer at the University of Barcelona, what are your other interests or hobbies?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the things that we cannot do as freely today during the pandemic are included in that bunch. So I love sports, and I love going outdoor and skiing and traveling. I love traveling very much. So all those things, unfortunately, are kind of on hold right now. Besides that, for the last 17 months, I've discovered another activity which I do like very much, which is being a father. I have a small baby, and that now is a very demanding activity. But most of all, I like to travel, to meet people, to go outdoor. I like sports very much. And yeah, I think that summarizes it a little bit.
Amazing. Congratulations on your son.
Thank you very much.
And last but not least, Alex, our two special questions for you are, which destination would you like to travel to as soon as it is safe and possible? And if you have been reading any books during this period, is there anyone that you recommend? And which one could it be?
Well, so regarding travel destination, actually, the first that comes to mind is actually in Spain. It's Menorca. It's one of my favorite places to go. I think it's one of the last paradises, at least here nearby. It's amazing. So I would really like to be on vacation there right now. And regarding actually, while going through this last month, I went back to read an old book, which is the Medici Effect, where basically the author talks about how combining different areas of expertise can spark innovation and can spark new ideas. And I think it's an interesting topic in the situation we're living. How can we change, and how can we think outside of the box by combining different areas of expertise? So I would strongly think of that one, the Medici effect. And I'm also reading one that was actually recommended by a friend, which is Drucker's Diary. It's a very simple one. It's basically every day of the year we get a lesson from Peter Drucker about management, and it's very short, so you can actually read it every morning for each day. And I'm also actually going through that.
I'll definitely take a look at that one.
Please do. Okay, thank you, Paulina.
Thank you very much. And we'll keep in touch. It was very, very interesting.
Likewise. Thank you for your time, and for just as an ending word, I would suggest all organizations out there to keep positive, and to rely on this innovation and resilience factors, because I'm sure that we'll come out stronger from this situation. So good luck for everyone, and keep positive.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Bye bye.
Bye bye.